Lindsay Tran is with us today. She's a certified energy healer and coach, also known as the Real Love Alchemist on social media. Lindsay, how are you doing?
I'm really good. Super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. I would love to know where the Real Love Alchemist name came from because the only other time I think I've heard that word used is in a Taylor Swift song.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get it from Taylor Swift, but I'm an energy healer, and my clients used to say to me, "Wow, like this stuff, it just feels like magic." And I was like, "Oh, I should do something with that." And so yeah, I came up with the Real Love Alchemist because I'm helping my clients find real love, healthy love, and they like to call it that too. So I said, "All right, let me make this work with putting those two things together." Yeah.
Yeah, well, I love the name. I think it's awesome. And that's obviously why you're here to talk about real love. And I want to kind of kick this off by talking about dating today because dating today is a very interesting culture. And I want to get into it. So, trying to find dating with commitment. How does one ensure they are dating to do that or being that?
Oh, that's such a good question. And yeah, I mean, dating today, it's tough. I would say a lot changed over the last couple of years, especially since the pandemic. Like when I started doing this work, it was around 2020. It was before that stuff went down. So I have seen a lot change since then. But there are just some basic things that you can do no matter no matter what's going on in the world to find commitment. And I think the most important thing is to just know what you want. And if you really want commitment, then you don't have to settle for people who aren't looking for that. Because sometimes we say to ourselves, like, yeah, it'd be nice to have a committed relationship, but we don't lead with that and we get ourselves involved in situationships and just things that aren't going anywhere. So I would say the first thing is just knowing what you want and then owning it, claiming it, and saying, yes, I want a committed relationship. And then when you go out there, you talk about it. So it doesn't mean like as soon as you meet someone, you're like, all right, what are you looking for? But as you start to get to know them, you do put it out there. And you could even start by just asking the other person that you're dating, like, hey, what are you looking for out of this? And they can share what they're looking for. And then you share too, and you say, yeah, I'm looking for something serious, something committed. And here's the hardest part. If there's a mismatch, even if you really like them, even if they're checking all of your boxes, you've got to walk away, which is so much easier said than done. But that's one of the biggest things to do as far as if you're looking for commitment.
Yeah, and I have found in my dating, I call them adventures now because at this point,
Yeah.
that's kind of what they are.
Yes.
But I have found that I think everybody would love to have a connection, and everybody is hoping to find someone. But I think there's a difference in wanting a connection and being ready for it. How
Totally.
can you like help people determine this person may say they want this, but I don't think that's actually what's happening here.
Oh, I love that. Because that was going to be the next thing that I was going to say. Yeah. So, because somebody can say, yes, I want a relationship. Some people will be very upfront with you and they will say, yeah, no, like I'm not looking for something serious. I just want to have something fun. Or they could even say, I'm open to something serious. I would say, no, they're not looking for something serious if they're saying that. But if they're saying they're looking for something serious, then the next step is you've got to keep your eyes open and make sure that their actions are matching that. So what does that look like? So I mean, emotional availability is something that we talk about a lot, but really that means like, are they showing up like a person who would want a serious relationship would show up? So if they're saying, I want something serious, but then they don't talk to you very much, like they don't ask you out, they don't set dates, or maybe you only hear from them like once a week or maybe even once every couple weeks, then I would say, no, that person probably is not actually ready for a serious relationship. So really it's like watching behavior and making sure their actions match their words. And also emotional availability. That's a huge thing. Like, can they show up in a way where they are present to you? They're not still hung up on their ex. They've worked through a lot of the major things in their life where they can actually show up as a person who's ready for something serious.
It's funny you mentioned emotional availability because that was my next thing to get into. Because I've had my fair share. Listen, I am someone who is stable, consistent, I'm healthy, I know what I'm looking for. But somehow I keep running into people who really, really think they're emotionally ready.
Yes.
And then they meet me and they're like, never mind. I am
Yes.
not, I am not ready for what you're bringing to the table. And that's fine. At least I'm learning that early on. But how do we know if somebody genuinely is emotionally available? Are there signs that you can pick up on in the beginning, maybe without even asking them? Because as we have learned, words don't always match actions.
Oh yeah, no, and there totally are. And like here's kind of like my key for this. Like if you're asking this question yourself, like am I emotionally available? Well, I would say take a look back at your recent relationship history. And if all of your partners were emotionally unavailable, then that probably means that there's some degree of unavailability that you've got going on, which like I hate to say that. And I say that as someone who was there too. Like, yeah, I was emotionally unavailable in the past, and it can sometimes be hard to see, but it's also super powerful because if we're in this place where we're like, I don't understand why I keep attracting these emotionally unavailable partners, then we can't shift it. But if we can own that, okay, yes, I probably have some of that going on if that's my only experience with dating. But yeah, emotional unavailability, it's so there's so many things that make up our ability to be available, but it really does start with being able to understand first what we're actually feeling. So some of us that's very easy to do, and for some of us that's actually quite hard. Like sometimes I think we're wired more emotionally. I know like I've been on both sides of this. I have struggled in the past with really being able to figure out what the heck am I feeling in this moment. And then I've gotten really good at it. And now I could tell you in 1 second, like, here's what I'm feeling. But it does sometimes take some practice and maybe even some therapy and doing some personal work, energy healing to just clear some of the stuff that's going on so that you know what you're feeling in any given moment. So I would say it starts with that. It starts with being able to know what you're feeling and then being able to express it when need be. And expressing it in a healthy way, not shouting, not yelling at people, not blaming, not criticizing, but saying like, "Hey, I'm feeling kind of anxious right now. Like, can we talk about this?" So that's a big part of it. And then also being comfortable with having emotional conversations. So, like, to answer your question about early dating, like, if you're getting hints that when you start to bring up something that's maybe like a little bit more serious, it doesn't have to be like super intense, but if you're bringing up stuff that's maybe a little bit more heavy, we could say, and they are shutting that down. They are like trying to talk about anything but that. I would say that might be a sign that this person is not super ready for the availability that you're looking for.
Hmm.
And also, the ability to set boundaries is huge too. So, like, to the other degree, if you're with somebody and they're just like cool with every single thing that you do, and they never bring up their preferences, they never bring up when something might be bothering them, they might not be emotionally available either. There's a lot that goes into it. We could talk like hours about
Yeah,
this.
no. And again, this is baseline because and there's a few different directions here I want to go. And I'm gonna remind me I would like to talk about how to tell a healthy partner from an unhealthy one. That is something I want to address.
Totally.
But you reminded me of something, and it's funny because I am now, I have had unhealthy relationships. I've had healthier ones as I've gotten older and I've learned a lot about things. But even in dating, as you're in these very early stages of, date one to date seven, let's give that the date range when you're learning all about a person.
Yeah.
I just, in the last few months, have dated the guy who would drop everything and do everything for me. And I was like, okay, I need you to have some different boundaries because this is too much.
Right.
And I've dated the guy who loved to show he was like really wanted it and then pulled back. Oh, I really want it. Oh, I'm gonna pull back again. And even to the point of saying, why can't we just have fun? And I was like, whoa, let me pump the brakes here because this is not what you said when we first started talking to each other. So
Yeah.
I have seen the spectrum of people, and this gets me to the point of knowing an unhealthy situation. So once you have been in an unhealthy situation, it is sometimes hard to recognize healthy. So can you kind of paint a picture of a healthy partner, maybe beyond those first kind of steps of dating as you really start to progress someone? Because I think we're learning and we're all growing, but it's sometimes hard to identify a healthy love and a healthy partner.
Oh, 100%. And this is my journey too. Yeah, like I became the Real Love Alchemist because I had bad relationships and I was like, I gotta figure this out. Like I don't want this to keep happening. And
And you
something that
have, because you did just get married. So very
exactly
exciting.
like yeah, hopefully I hope that I figured it out. Yeah, no, I'm very happy now. It's like a completely different relationship from the ones I've had in the past. But no, you're right. It can be so hard to figure out what actually healthy love is when you've never had it, when you haven't had that experience of it. And that was a big struggle for me too. And that's why I dove in and I figured it out. But I feel like I'm still in that process. And I would say, speaking of emotional availability, something that I thought to share that sometimes doesn't come up in like if you just Google like how to tell if you're emotionally available, but something that I've realized on my own journey is that when we're going from bad relationships to a more healthier relationship, sometimes we can swing to the opposite extreme and we find faults in every single person and we're trying to find this like perfect healed person, and the reality is that doesn't exist. Like we're not going to find that. We can find somebody who's relatively healthy, but everyone's going to have something going on. So I think the degree to which you can be a little bit forgiving of certain things, and I'll tell you when that's good to do, actually speaks to how emotionally available you are. Because people who are emotionally available and who have had good, healthy relationships their whole life, they know that someone's not going to be perfect. They know that there's going to be challenges. They know that there's going to be things to work on. So they give you a little grace. They can work with you. And I think sometimes that can be the hardest thing when we're going from unhealthy relationships because we don't want to have that happen again. And so we've got like eagle eyes out, right? For
Yep.
anything
The pendulum is totally on the other side and it's not coming back for a while.
completely. And like give yourself some grace if you're there too. Like that is part of the process. But I would say part of the process is coming back into balance eventually and realizing that, yeah, like somebody doesn't have to be perfect. But one of the things that I think does make you a healthy partner is if you are open to personal growth. So if you're open to healing, this is what I was looking for. I knew at some point I was like, all right, I'm not gonna find this perfect person. Like I've got my stuff, so I can expect somebody else to have this blank slate and have nothing going on. So I was just looking for, does this person have some self-awareness? Like, can they own the stuff that they've got going on? Can they take feedback from me when I say, like, hey, this thing freaked me out, or like this thing hurt me? Can they hear me and can they then work to accommodate me within reason? Like, I'm assuming that I'm being reasonable here in my request. So honestly, I think that's some of the most important things to look for, the potential that a person has to actually grow and change with you in a relationship. So that was my number one thing that I was looking
Love
for in a
that.
partner. And I've got it. Like my partner, my partner's a therapist. So he's like, yeah, he gets it. And somebody who's also willing to apologize. Because again, we're going to mess up. We are not perfect people here. We're going to say things that we don't mean. We're going to hurt our partner, even if we're not meaning to. And so somebody that can own that and say, yeah, like I apologize. I'm going to try to do better next time. And someone who you really just feel safe with, who you feel like your nervous system can just kind of go, ah, like maybe they don't have the super exciting fireworks that maybe past relationships had where they were more unhealthy. Of course, attraction is important. You have to be attracted, but someone who you feel like you can exhale with, who it just feels like this person is home to you. And I say that with like a little asterisk, like not home in the sense of like if you had an unhealthy upbringing where it feels like, oh, this is super familiar, but no, where you feel like you have this sense of a team with this person, like they're showing up for you, they're emotionally available, they're consistent, and they want to be with you. So that's just like a little bit of what you can look for as far as transitioning into a healthy relationship.
Yeah, and you mentioned consistent there, and I this is my phrase. Consistency is sexy. That is like my go-to phrase
I love it. I love it.
because you never until I got probably late 20s and now to where I'm at in my life, I never realized how important consistency was for me.
Same.
I think especially having unhealthy or toxic relationships or however they look, you feel that chaos and that chaos drives you to the opposite of what you're saying of like calmness, no chaos, don't bring me anything. But that middle ground is consistency. Like who you are is consistent. And I have often said that's my number one thing I'm looking for. The communication is so important. And of course, I have a laundry list of things I'm looking for. But the first thing I'm paying attention is how you're interacting with the world and how consistent you're being within those regions of different things. Would you agree that that's like a really important factor as well?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And I would say that like that kind of goes with integrity too. Like I had
Mm.
that high on my list as well, like somebody who could be consistent and who had integrity, which kind of speaks to like, yes, they would do what they said they would do. It feels like this person is not hiding things from me. They're just being real with me. And yes, they are consistent. They show up. They're not running away when the conversations get tough or when there's a conflict. So yeah, completely. I would recommend looking for that too.
Oh, yay. Okay, good. Listen,
You're
I
on the right
always
track.
yeah, I like the confirmation that we're headed in the right direction. So
Yeah.
I also want to talk to, I think there's also, we're mentioning some toxic and not as calm relationships. And you mentioned that firework feeling.
Mm.
And often that people refer to as butterflies. And I saw one of your posts on social media talking about this, and I thought it was so interesting because I've experienced many different kinds of butterflies in my dating, good, bad, everywhere in between. What's your thoughts on this? Like, what are butterflies and what's the situation with them? Should we be avoiding them? Happy that they're around? What's going on?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Butterflies, man, they could be super confusing because like you said, you can feel all kinds of different sensations down there and they can mean a lot of different things. So, my stance on it is that I would not go by butterflies to tell you anything because typically they're thought of as just like sensations in the stomach. And you can have those kinds of sensations when you're excited, when you're turned on, but also when you're feeling unsafe, when you're feeling anxious. So like if that's the deal with butterflies, then I just tell my clients like don't go by them. Like it's nice to notice when they're there and you can say, "Oh, I feel butterflies. Maybe I want to investigate that a little bit more. Like what is that actually telling me? What am I feeling here?" Sometimes they can even be present when we feel love. So it's super confusing. And I just say like throw the butterfly thing away. Like it really is not a reliable indicator for whether someone's right for you or wrong for you because they could be present in so many different situations. Such a good question. Thank you.
Oh yeah, but and it's so hard, right? Because I have grown up on Disney movies and I've been taught that butterflies are what you're looking for. Like you should be swept off your feet. Heck, even Princess Diaries taught me that I should be foot bopping when I'm kissing. You know what I mean? Like there's so many levels of this. So I love that you said it has multiple levels and maybe just like use it as your body's reacting to something and nothing more than that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like don't if you're asking for just straight up advice, don't go by butterflies. Yeah, like it can mean so many different things. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Okay, I'm glad we made sure to squash that
Yeah.
little bug, if you will. I also want to talk about, I think there's this perception around people who jump from relationship to relationship, good and bad, right? There's some people who are like, oh, good for them. There's other people who are like, holy crap, what are they doing? What is this situation with people who jump to relationship to relationship that you've seen? Is this more normal or is it something that we shouldn't be doing? How do we know we're healing? Like this kind of baseline of just jumping from a relationship to relationship.
Yeah, I like to talk about that because I was that person in my past. Like I pretty much jumped from a 10-year marriage into another relationship. And yeah, it really was just a matter of a couple months. So I could totally relate to being in that place. And I would say if I put myself in my head at that time, there were a number of different reasons why I was doing that. And a lot of them are unconscious. That's why I'm big on subconscious work. But some of the reasons were I didn't want to be alone because I had been in this relationship for so long, and the thought of starting over again completely and being single for a while just completely filled me with dread. I just felt like, oh, it's so daunting. I don't want to do it. Now this was not completely conscious, but that was going on in the back of my mind. And the other reason was I had told myself, which was not actually true, but I had told myself that I had done a lot of the grieving while in the relationship because it was a long time coming. Like I didn't just pop out of there. I had done a lot of work to get to that point, and I thought I was over it at that point, which was not completely not true. But that's what I was thinking at the time. And also, I was trying to avoid the deep pain, the deep grieving that I really actually needed to do before getting into a relationship. So I thought, well, I'll just pop in here and like I'll just feel better and that'll be it. I'll just be good. So I think a lot of those reasons are why people jump from relationship to relationship. Now, I can't speak for everyone here, but that's usually what I see, like some variation of those or even all of them going on at once. And I would say like no judgment if you want to do that, cool. But I would say if you're looking to break the cycle of these painful relationships, you probably do want to pause because it's very different actually being single after a relationship and taking that time to figure out who am I now? How did I get to this point? And what do I actually want moving forward? Because from my experience, you can't get that kind of perspective while you're in the relationship with somebody. Even if you think you've done all the processing, like you've done all the work, it's different when you're single. It's different when you're out of that relationship. So, I mean, unfortunately, I do see it a lot. But again, if you're trying to break the cycle of painful relationships, I would not recommend relationship hopping.
And if do you feel like as long as you've really gone through that grieving process, there's not really this timeline for that? Because I also know that people have kind of different experiences with how quickly they bounce back, some longer, some shorter. So do you feel like as long as you've in that single time frame, like while you've truly been alone, like grieved that relationship, that can kind of timeline look different?
Oh, yeah, yeah, it can be completely different. Now, if you've done a lot of that grieving while in the previous relationship, then yeah, maybe it wouldn't take that long for you. But for some people, it can take quite a long time, and that's okay. There's no judgment on this. There's no like you have to be done by this amount of time. No, you take as much time as you need. And I would also say while you're taking that time, it's super important to make sure that you're doing like a almost like an autopsy on your past relationship and just really understanding what went wrong, what you want to be different, and what you want moving forward. Because it's pretty easy if you're trying to jump quickly into the next relationship to go, well, I know what I don't want. But then you might just pop back into the same thing if you don't realize what you're actually looking for that's different.
Mm,
So
yeah.
yeah, there's no timeline on this. Not at
Yeah.
all.
No, that's super important. And you did also mention in talking about this, the subconscious work that you do. I would love to hear some more about this. Is there particular subconscious work? So take me as your example. Throw me to the fire because that's what I'm here for. I feel like a really healthy person. I've done a lot of work. I continue to grow. That's always going to be something that's part of my life and I'm available and I'm consistent. I feel like I am the example of someone who I feel like I'm ready when that time comes. But is there something I can still be doing? Because I'm a big believer in that you're always evolving. So, is there something I can be doing? Or even somebody who's on the polar opposite spectrum of me, who's not at all ready or wants to be ready? What subconscious work do we need to be doing to find our kind of perfect relationship? Perfect in star quotes because nothing is perfect. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Yes, yes. And I love talking about this. So yeah, like in your case, I would say you might be good, but if you start to notice that you're talking to someone and you're getting a little triggered and maybe some thoughts are running through your head like, "Oh, am I good enough?" Or maybe I'm feeling some shame about this, or I'm feeling like some anxiety around this situation. That might be your clue that there's something deeper going on and you can do some subconscious work. And also, like, if you're just feeling any kind of suffering, if you are walking around feeling not enough in some way, or like even very pessimistic about dating, if you feel like, oh, there's just no good men out there, or I'm never going to find somebody, then that's a pretty big clue that there's something subconscious going on. So, as far as the kind of work you can do, I mean, anything that addresses the subconscious is helpful. My favorite way is energy healing. That's what I do. But it's really just a matter of getting in there and moving through what's being held in your system. So that could be emotions from the past, there could even be negative beliefs that are being held in there, and doing whatever modality that you feel drawn to clear the energies, clear the emotions, process them is another way of saying that, and rewire some of those negative beliefs that might be in there. It's a game changer when it comes to relationships.
Can you break down the energy healing part for me? Because I have worked with somebody here locally who she doesn't go by that. She's also a massage therapist, but she has energy healing techniques and they've benefited me greatly. And I told people about it and everybody thought I was absolutely wild. And I was like, no, no, no. You got to wait until your body feels this. It's so crazy. So can you break down kind of what that looks like for you, the energy healing side of things?
Oh yeah. Yeah, and everybody does it a little bit differently. But how I do it is I'm using intuition and then also muscle testing to get information from your subconscious. So let's say you're coming to me and you're saying, "Hey Lindsay, I'm doing pretty well, but I'm noticing that I'm getting a little bit triggered lately and I'm starting to feel like I'm not good enough in certain ways." So what I would do is I would just tune in again through intuition to your subconscious and ask your subconscious very directly, "What's going on here? What do we need to clear for you?" And so sometimes there's like what I call trapped emotions, suppressed emotional energies, and sometimes there's negative beliefs. Sometimes there's a whole bunch of other stuff that comes up. But really, what I do is I clear it through intention. So that means I put my hand on my heart and I hold the intention for that energy to be released. And the crazy thing is, that's what releases it. It blows my mind every time, but intention is so powerful. So whether you're like sitting next to me in this room here or you're across the world, I can still connect to your energy and do work on that level. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, wow. Okay, so this is so similar to what I did. I love what you do, and I think the work is really important. Even for all the people who are like, I don't believe it. Just give it a try. You never know. Like everything I say, one thing I strongly believe is we're always evolving, and one is that you never know something works until you try it for yourself. So that's the only way you can tell. And
Exactly.
it's so funny you say this because one of the things she did this whole kind of process on me as well, but similar in that she also was like, you have some strings here that are tied to certain
Oh yeah.
people and things, and we're gonna clear it all out. It's like kind of like cobwebs, like girlfriend, they're just all gonna be gone. And I'm like, okay, clear it. Just you know what? Give me a base starting point of something new. And it did feel like this just strange sensation, and I wish I could explain it so much better. But I just felt like there was just a weight lifted in a way where there just wasn't this connection anymore that I was waiting or hoping or praying for, however you want to go about it. And I say all this to say, so ironically, like I have an animal, I have pets, I have a dog and a cat, but my dog and I are seriously bonded, and I do so much for her more than I probably do for myself. And
Yeah.
what's so crazy is I've never considered this for myself. But when I was training my dog to become a therapy animal, one of the things the trainers, like dog trainers, told me was if you are having a bad day and you hold that leash, your dog will have a bad day. And they're like, it's all about the energy transference from you through that leash to your dog.
Yeah.
And until the energy massage happened and that piece of information that happened 4 or 5 years apart, right? All came together and I was just sitting there on my couch like, what has happened to me? I didn't know any of this existed and what's going on. So all of that and all those stories to say like could not believe more in what you're doing. And also just for someone who was like a little, I guess, unsure that it would help or do something like this does help. This benefits people so widely.
Oh, I'm so glad you shared that. Thank you. Because yeah, you're a testament to it. And I was a super skeptical person before entering this world. So like I get it. It really is kind of out there, but it is the kind of thing where you just have to try it and see for yourself. And not like I'll be real, it's not for everyone. Not every modality is not for everyone, but for a lot of people, including myself, it's been life changing. And yeah,
Mhm.
we can actually do work on animals too. That's the crazy part in all this. That yeah, they can hold stuff too. And they're very much affected by our energy. So I love that trainers are telling me that. It's so true. It's
It
so true.
is. Well, and like I said, it was like all the pieces started to just kind of collide together and I'm like, okay, of course I did this for her 5 years ago, but I never once seemed to think that this could be the same with me and other people existing in my world or objects or whatever it may be. And it was just that kind of light bulb finally went off. Like it was there and it needed to be like turned on in a way. So I think it's really awesome. And I'm probably sure that you do have a lot of people that can be skeptical. So I want to be someone that tells you I love the work you're doing and I think it's important.
Thank you.
I do want to also, and this is totally different sub level here, but we were talking about relationships and something I would love to ask because this is a hot topic on social media. And I have my own personal opinion about it. But is it ever okay to go back to an ex or somebody you once dated? Yeah, I know, hot topic. So
Super hot
somebody,
topic.
yeah, somebody once dated for a little bit, a full-blown ex that you were in a relationship, any of the spectrum. Speaking generally here, is it ever okay?
Yeah, great question. And I would say yes, in some cases it is. I mean, I'm never going to tell you like black and whites except for saying that. Like, but no, I think there are some situations where sure, you can go back to an ex, but I would say some specific qualifications have to be met. So I would not go back to an ex if nothing has changed. Like, there's a reason why that relationship didn't work out. So you would have to make sure that you were a different person. They were a different person. You guys have talked about what happened, what went wrong, what you're now doing differently in order to make that relationship work. And I've seen this. I've seen this with clients. Sometimes, we work on relationships, people do get back together and they're happy and it works out. Sometimes it doesn't though. And it really it all comes down to have both of you done the work from that previous relationship and are you now different people where it can work out. So
Oh,
yeah,
goodness.
it's a controversial topic, but no, I have seen it work out. So I can say yes, there are situations where it can, but things have to be different because it's not the same relationship as it was before. If it is, probably not going to work out.
Yeah, and that is my very controversial opinion on it. If I think it's different when you just maybe dated a little bit. There was a few dates and the timing didn't work out, whatever it may be, and you were just not grown enough to do what you needed to do for that relationship. But when I see specifically exes, I'm like I firmly stand by that they are an ex for a reason. Most of the time. Unfortunately, there's a reason why that happened. So I do have that controversial opinion, but I love what you said, which is, if you are going to do this and you're going to wade in those waters, make sure things have changed for both of you.
Mhm.
That was really good.
100%. Because I've been that person that's tried to go back to the ex, and I'm like, what am I doing? I feel like I'm banging my head against the wall. Like it's just the same thing.
Hmm.
But yes, I do. Like I said, I've seen it where people have really committed to doing the work, and they are different, and they show up different, and then you have a different relationship, and it can work out. But I completely agree with you. Like there's a lot of reasons why exes are exes, and often people don't change, and that's okay. But that just means there's something different for us out there.
Well, please end us with a piece of advice because I've also had those experiences and I can proudly say that now because I have done that. I have gone back when I shouldn't have. So,
Yes.
you live and you learn. But I do want you to give us a little piece of hope to end this on because as much as I wish to be a skeptic and pessimistic, despite everything I have been through, I still firmly believe in love. And I think it's a beautiful thing that all of us do deeply want, no matter how hard it is to find and accomplish. So please give us a little bit of hope, if you will, like a hopeful piece of advice.
No, I'd be happy to. And I will preface this by saying, like, I have been a person who has completely lost hope in finding healthy love. And what I would say to my past self, and I'll say to anyone else out there, is if you believe it's possible, even like the slightest, tiniest, like what do they say, like a mustard seed of faith, if you have a little bit of faith that love is possible for you, then it can happen. And so I would say do whatever work you can do to get to the place where you have that little bit of faith, because that will lead you to the love that you're looking for. It is absolutely possible for you. I've seen it in all ages, all circumstances. If you do believe it's possible, then it can happen for you. And yeah, it's happened for me too. And it's happened for a lot of people I've worked with. So yeah, there is so much love out there. We just have to open up to it. I can leave you with that too. A lot of times we have so many blocks to it that we actually can't see it. But if we can do the work to open up to it, yeah, it's there. And it might not look like what you thought it would look like, but it's 100% there for you.
Oh, I love that. Well, Lindsay, thank you so much. You are the alchemist, the real love alchemist. I hope people have learned some things and taken some things from this, but thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.